Mm-hmm.
Hey everybody, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to the 9th Annual Hispanic Educators Association Career Night. We are really excited that you're able to join us, and I'm sure it's going to be more familia joining us in a couple of minutes. So we're going to give them maybe a couple of seconds to log in, and we really are excited. I am going to share a little bit of the agenda of what we're going to do today. We're going to have the opening remarks, and then there's going to be an introduction to each of the panelists. And then each of the panelists is going to do their section. They're going to have a question and answer, and then closing remarks. So with that, Teddy, take it away.
Again, good evening and a very warm welcome to the Hispanic Educator Association's 9th Annual Career Night. We're very happy that you're participating in this amazing event this evening. HEA is a Fairfax County Public Schools organization whose purpose is to promote and advocate for educational and leadership opportunities for Latinx students, to encourage student participation in advanced academic programs, leadership activities, and higher education, to provide information and
is it right over near Ashburn, or where is it?
Parents, and to disseminate relevant information and materials to teachers and administrators. If everybody could mute when they're not
good,
on,
man. Well, good. I don't want to bother you, Brad. I just want to see. I didn't realize there were two elements to the test. We didn't really talk about it. So yeah, no worries. You go.
If we could mute, please, if you're not presenting. Okay, great. Thank you. So to support our goals, one of our major student-centered activities each year is to provide scholarships through our sister organization, Hispanic Leadership Alliance, HLA. And through this, we provide scholarships to first-generation Latinx Fairfax County Public Schools seniors each spring. Those of you who are seniors who will be the first in your families to attend post-secondary education should strongly consider applying for one of our HLA 2021 scholarships. Information about 2021 scholarships will be available early next year.
But if you're clear now and your buddies all got tested, I'm sure you're fine.
Hey, Tim, can you please put yourself on mute? Tim Winter, can you please put yourself on mute? Thank you.
Expose, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Another major student-centered event.
I'm actually going to jump.
Another major student-centered event each year is our annual Career Night, which we're all gathered here for this evening. Career Night's a wonderful opportunity that brings together Latinx role models who represent a wide variety of professions and careers to tell us the stories of their journeys to reach their goals and to provide advice and answer questions regarding career pathways and opportunities. We're proud to be able to offer an outstanding panel of professionals again this year. We also work closely to collaborate with and support FCPS student organizations, promoting and advocating for Latinx students. We'd like to thank our student partner organizations, including
Ew, not them putting a picture of me up there.
Could we please mute? We'd like to thank our partner organizations, Lake Braddock Secondary School, John Lewis High School, West Springfield High School, also the Latin American Student Association International at Robinson Secondary School, and also our Latino Leadership Club at Mount Vernon High School. So now I'd like to turn it over to Jane Cruz, who will begin the introduction of our panelists this evening. Jane?
Good evening, muy buenas noches. I hope everyone's settled in to participate in an evening of inspiring, profound, and sometimes funny, hopefully, stories from our panel of dynamic professionals from all over the U.S. as well as Buenos Aires. They represent a handful of careers and a variety of routes they have navigated to reach their chosen careers. This is the 9th year I've enjoyed welcoming learners and presenters to our annual Career Night. Every year, I'm so excited to hear the stories our presenters share with you, our learners. I'm also excited about ushering in a new way of offering this forum for our learners and professionals. After the presenters have spoken, you will have a chance to ask any question that will help you understand their career or story better. Please leave your questions in the chat as they're speaking. Our first presenter tonight is a former teacher of Chicano studies and the father of 4. Jorge Hernández is a Superior Court judge for the County of Riverside, California. But life wasn't always so official. Growing up poor, Jorge turned his adversity into opportunity, but it required the resilience, dedication, and hunger for achievement that was nurtured by his desire to succeed. After earning a bachelor's degree from the University of California, Riverside, he went on to earn a Juris Doctor, JD, from the University of California, Hastings College of the Law, graduated with Kamala Harris, and after working as a public defender, he became a sole practitioner before being appointed by former Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger in 2008 as a Superior Court judge. A dedicated supporter of Riverside Art Museum and now the Cheech Marin Center for Chicano Art and Culture, Jorge Hernández is the founder of the Pachuco Ball, held every August to support programs and services of the museum. The host of Radio Aztlán on KUCR 88.3 FM, Jorge is also a lowrider enthusiast, collects Chicano art, and has a vast collection of early Chicano music. Mary Emerson will introduce Raúl.
Thank you, Jane. I was muted. Raúl Jurado was born in Los Angeles, California, and is now the Executive Director for Business Development at Mantech International, as well as the CEO of his own small business, Tier 1 Health Systems. Raised by an illegal immigrant and a Vietnam War veteran, Raúl chose to follow his stepfather's footsteps and served in the U.S. Army for over 23 years, serving in 2 combat tours and retiring as a highly decorated officer. He earned the rank of Major and was awarded the Bronze Star. Raúl is an example of a person who overcame personal diversity and challenges to now perform as the CEO of his own company. Simultaneously, he has competed and succeeded in one of the toughest business markets in the US, Washington, D.C. He has 3 sons, ages 28, 20, and 18, and he resides in Florida. My next presenter, Marina Lavalle, currently teaches International Baccalaureate, Global Politics and Social Studies at an international school, Asociación Escuelas Lincoln, in Buenos Aires, Argentina. Before Buenos Aires, Marina taught for 3 years at an independent school in New York City, and prior to that, taught at the American School of Quito for 3 years in Quito, Ecuador. Marina is originally from Annandale, Virginia. She studied international studies and Spanish at Virginia Commonwealth University. In 2016, she received her Master's of Science from State University of New York. Through international teaching, she has had the privilege to work with a diverse group of students. As a world traveler, she is passionate about creating relationships that deepen intercultural understanding. Sammi G has been a popular radio personality in the Dallas-Fort Worth area since 1989. After an impressive 30+ years as a speaking, voiceover, and radio broadcasting artist at such stations as 100.3 Jams, KZPS 92.5, 106.1 KISS FM, and K104, Sammi G came to truly unite those who love to broadcast and those who love to help their communities with her own digital radio network. Fishbowl Radio Network was founded on September 1, 2009, and is now the largest and most listened to internet radio network of its kind in the USA. This new broadcasting model, which she created, is now the platform for over 150 independent radio shows and amasses over 7.2 million listeners a month from across the globe. As one of as one of only 2 minority females in the United States who have founded and own a radio broadcasting network, Sammi understands the power of the media and encourage everyone on her network to use it for a greater good and to serve others. Sammi is also a national voiceover recording talent and motivational speaker. Her most cherished role, though, is that of wife, mother, and Mimi. She has 2 children and 2 grandchildren and is married to her high school sweetheart, Miguel Martinez. Her birth name is Celia St. John. However, everyone calls her by her radio name after all these years, Sammi G. And now, back to you, Jane.
Diego Wilson came here from Quito, Ecuador, a long time ago. He graduated from Robinson Secondary School. Diego is now assistant superintendent for the city of Fairfax Schools. After working for 5 years for mechanical contractors, he went back to school to obtain his BBA in finance and economics at JMU. He served as an educator for 16 years, as an assistant principal for 10 years, and as an academy administrator for 5 years before going on to the Fairfax City Schools. As a teacher, he taught heating, ventilating, and air conditioning, HVAC, at the Edison Academy in Fairfax County Public Schools, while at the same time obtained his Virginia Mechanical Master's Contractor's License. Then he went back to school and attended GMU to obtain his Master's in Educational Leadership. As an assistant principal, he worked at Luther Jackson Middle School, Frost Middle School, Hayfield Secondary, and administrator for the Fairfax Academy. We have an outstanding panel for you to listen to tonight. And first, we would like to hear the story that Jorge tells us. Go for it, Jorge.
Thank you very much for the invitation to participate all the way from California. I thought I was going to be the longest person joining, but Buenos Aires has me beat by quite a distance. I'm proud to be part of a group of such talented individuals with vast experiences and education and talent. So thank you, and thank my prima, Jane, for inviting me. So I'm a Superior Court judge. I've been a judge now for 12 years. The path to becoming a judge is typically you have to graduate from high school or the equivalent, then get a bachelor's degree. Most people will say that you should get a bachelor's degree in either political science, history, or English. Those are the 3 majors that require a lot of writing in a formatted fashion. Thesis, 3 supporting points, and a conclusion, which translates well to law school. Law school is issue, rule, application, and conclusion. So the skills that you learn in those majors, you can easily translate to law school. That's not required. I went to law school with dance majors, economic majors. It really doesn't matter what your bachelor's degree is in, but Raza are not, we're a word people. We communicate well, but when it comes down to writing, we have some issues. So if you have those issues, then make sure that you have a major that's going to develop those. After your bachelor's degree, you go to law school. Law school is 3 years full-time. It is so, law school is ugly. I don't know of anybody that had a good time in law school because it's just so intense. They don't even allow you to work your first year because it is so intense. So you have to put 150% into that. After you graduate from law school, you have to take this thing called a bar exam. In California, the bar exam, when I took it, was 3 days. Imagine taking an exam that is 3 days in length. Imagine having to know 17 different areas of law code and how they interrelate with each other. Now that might scare you. You might, say, oh, maybe that's not for me. But let me tell you, if this barrio boy from the barrio could have got a bachelor's degree and gone to law school, each and every one of you can do so. I was not born with the silver spoon in my mouth. As a matter of fact, my background is that of government assistance. That's a nice way of saying welfare and food stamps. My mom and dad separated when I was 6 years old. She packed everybody up in back of a station wagon. We were on our way to San Jose because my mom had lived there before and could find some work. But our car broke down in San Bernardino, and we spent the first 3 days in a Salvation Army tent city. My mom had limited education. There was limited work in this area. So it was very rough for her to raise 7 boys and 1 girl. Our car broke down when I was 6, and we didn't have a car again till I was in the 11th grade. So imagine living anywhere without a vehicle. So we struggled a lot. There were times we didn't have light. We'd have to go knock next door to the next door neighbors and ask them if we could run an extension cord from their house to ours. There were times when we didn't have water. We'd have to ask the neighbor to allow us to run a water hose so that we can cook, clean, and use the bathroom. I remember when I was in college, there was a 6-month period, because I was still living at home. There was a 6-month period where we didn't have any gas. Imagine taking cold showers for 6 months. And we cooked everything outside. Los frijoles, tortillas, pollo, lo que sea. We cooked everything outside. We happened to have we were renting a place that had a outside barbecue. So that allowed us to survive. So life was tough growing up, but we always had a sense of family. We always had a sense of togetherness. The holidays were always the hardest. November and December were always the hardest because, you know, we really didn't have money for gifts. We really didn't have money for turkey and all the fixings and everything else that people enjoy. Oftentimes, we would have to go to the churches and the food pantries in order to get food and materials in order to at least have some semblance of a holiday. So after I graduated from North High School. From there, I went to UC Riverside. From there, I went to Hastings, went into private practice, was in private practice for 15 years, practiced as a lawyer for 20 before I was appointed to the bench by a very conservative governor, Arnold Schwarzenegger. I am not conservative. I call myself a Chicano, and with that comes a certain level of politics. And I never thought that I would ever be appointed to the bench by a very conservative governor. But your work speaks for itself. And I always had a great reputation. A lot of people say, Jorge, how did you get to where you were at? I credit my mom, my jefita, for that. And let me share a story. I remember when we moved to California, we started going to California schools. Every time you go to a new school, you always get beat up because you're the new kid in town. We went to 6 different elementary schools, 2 junior high schools, and 2 high schools. I remember coming home from work, chillando, llorando. My mom said, ¿Qué te pasa, hijo? I got into a fight and I got beat up. My mom says, what did you do back? Nothing. She got the belt and she whooped me. And I couldn't understand. I said, Mom, why am I in trouble? Why am I getting hit? She goes, because you didn't fight back. Mom, but they're bigger than me. My mom says, it doesn't matter if they're bigger than you. Doesn't matter if there's more of them. You pick up a rock, you pick up a stick, you take off your shoe, you take off your belt, you fight back. No te dejes. You fight back. I go, Mom, but they're going to beat me up. She goes, yes, but they will always think twice about that crazy kid with the shoe that ran after them and fought back. I learned then not to be afraid or not to let fear control me, right? Not to let fear interfere in my ability to do things, to become educated. And all of us are afraid. Every one of you, as high school students, as junior high school students, people about to go to college, every one of you are afraid. Am I smart enough? Am I bright enough? Am I going to be able to do that? Am I going to have enough money? Well, those anxieties that you feel now, I felt them 30 years ago. And every Chicano that has ever been educated has always felt those anxieties and those fears, especially if you're first generation college goers. I'm a first generation college goer, and I've had those anxieties. When I became a lawyer, I had anxieties. My first trial, I was scared. When I became a judge, my first case, my first trial, I was scared, right? But I never let fear control me. So those of you who are listening to me, I don't see your faces. And if we were next to each other, I wouldn't see your faces anyway, because the máscara will cover the máscara, right? Those of you who are out there, who are trying to figure out what it is that you want to do in life, let me tell you, you are not alone. You have help. You have this wonderful organization. You have this beautiful panel of people that you can email and talk to. Any of you wants to talk to me about what it takes to go to law school? Send me an email. You want to talk to me about how I made it through college? Send me an email. You want to talk to me about what it's like to be a judge? Send me an email. And I'd be more than happy to answer any one of your questions. But with all sincerity, tienes que tener un poco de ganas. You have to have that desire to want to do something with your life. All it takes is a little bit of ganas. You don't have to do it alone, but you do have to do it yourself. Nobody's going to do it for you. No one did it for me. And I spend my entire life reaching behind me and trying to pull people up, trying to teach them about our history, trying to teach them about our culture, trying to teach them about our art and our music and everything else. I will not stop trying to educate people until I die. And then when I die, you folks will be in my shoes helping the next generation of people. As I look at this panel, we have about 4 generations right here. 4 generations of people who are continuing to help. You are not alone, gente. You are not alone, youngsters. And every one of us is here. Any way that I can help you, all the way from California, all you have to do is reach out. Y aquí estoy.
Thank you so much, Jorge, for sharing that inspirational story. And something that you said about your barrio comment and the things that your moms would say to you resonated with me, because my mom would always say, si ella puede, yo también, right? We just have to ponerte las pilas and then you got it. All right, now Raúl, you are next in sharing a bit about your journey.
All right, just put on a timer there because I'm known to talk a little bit, so just want to be. Hey, thank you everyone for allowing me to have this opportunity to speak. There's 2 things I want to kind of just target, right? 2 things is my message. And the first thing is, you've got to be resilient. And the second piece is you've got to surround yourself with positive people who are going to move you in the right direction. That said, do you mind going to slide 1, please? There you are. So I put together 2 slides. I had 15 minutes, so I think I can get through this. But just wanted to kind of go over a little bit about myself in terms of where I'm at, what I'm doing, how I got here, and share some of the challenges that it took to get to where I'm at. And one of the key things that you're going to see in my story is there's no straight line, right? So there's no 4 years of high school, 4 years of college, 2 years of a master's degree, and success. For me, it took me several different ways, different turns in my life to get where I'm at. And I tell you that because I don't want you always got to keep in mind, don't ever get discouraged with failure, right? Because failure is what you build your success on, right? Because if you did everything right the first time, you'd never learn anything, right? So just, I'm from Los Angeles, California, went to high school there. And just one note there, I went to, much like the good judge, I went to several different middle schools, 4 different middle schools, 5 different high schools, except my family never moved once. So what I'm saying is I got kicked out of all these schools just because, it was the life I lived. I lived a very tough life growing up in East Los Angeles, and I chose to kind of walk with the wrong people. And eventually I had to make some decisions. So I was fortunate to graduate, right? I graduated with a 2.02 high school GPA. And if you know what a 2.202 is, that means I was the number 2, the second person in my class at the bottom, not at the top. So it was kind of a little bit of a challenge there, right? But look, and people looked at me and said, man, this guy is going to be, he's a troublemaker. We don't know what's going to happen with him. But, just like in life, I had to make some decisions really quickly because my mom was not having, this crazy kid living in her house anymore. It's time for me to make some adult decisions at the age of 18. So I had to make some decisions. And one of those decisions was I had to join the Army. So I joined the Army. I spent 23 years in the Army, best 23 years of my life. I will tell you, I've been all over the world. I've been to Germany, Europe, all over Europe, the Middle East, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait. I spent time in Central America and in Panama, and then all over the United States. I lived in Florida, Washington, D.C., Kentucky, New York, Texas, Indiana, California, Washington State, Alabama, and quite a few other places. And this is where I lived, right? So just, and I have 3 small boys, and, no, they're not small anymore, 18, 20, and 28 would always be small to me. But bottom line is those guys moved every year from different school to different school. So they learned to be resilient a little bit differently, right? So when I joined the Army, right, I ended up, it took me, I guess it was graduate 20, so almost 9 years to get my associate's degree. So when I graduated from high school, 9 years later, I got a 2-year degree. Unfortunately, I was able to get out of the Army and go to the Florida International University. I received my bachelor's in art and political science. My intent was to go to law school. I spent my first 9 years in the Army doing military law, criminal justice, supporting the attorneys as a paralegal, which is very interesting and fun. But on top of that, I started going to school. So I got out of the Army in 1998 and decided to go to school. And I went to a ROTC program. The ROTC program, which was great about it, it was the entry point to becoming a commissioned officer in the United States Army, which means, the shiny rank. So for a lot of you. But bottom line is, so when I made that transition to go to school, I got out of the Army, and much like the other gentleman spoke to, I had some issues because I didn't have any money. My parents didn't give me any money, and the Army was giving me $500 a month to go to school, and I was living in Miami. And I actually lived in the ROTC supply closet for much of my college. So what I'm telling you is I lived in a closet where they kept all the sleeping bags and all the training equipment in the ROTC battalion because I was essentially homeless. I used a gym to do all my personal hygiene stuff. There were computer labs on campus, and I worked at night, in different capacities to help me get through college, right? And the statement I tell you, because the reason I tell you that is that, if you really want something, you're going to have to sacrifice. You cannot get to the next level by simply just going day to day and just achieving mediocrity, right? You really got to sacrifice. You got to understand, hey, look, it's not going to be easy to cross that bridge, but the sacrifices you made are going to make you a better person and make you more successful. So I completed that bachelor's degree in 2000 and decided to join the Army. And when I joined the Army, they decided to make me a helicopter pilot. So I flew helicopters for about a good year and a half. And it was a lot of fun, but the Army said, hey, we appreciate you flying helicopters. You're not very good. We got to find you another job. So I was like, wow. So, truly me to you, I had no real desire to fly helicopters. I just happened to qualify. I was the only one in my class that qualified to fly helicopters. And the only reason I did it is one of my instructors in the ROTC battalion was a pilot, and he wanted one person to go, and I said, okay, I'll go. And I went, and I'm scared of heights. So if you understand that, I'm scared of heights. And one day I was flying, and I think I was 5,000 feet in the air, and there was a light tower or an antenna tower, and I was able to triangulate where I was, the top of the tower was, and where the ground was, and I froze, and I said, yeah, I don't think I like this anymore. So imagine being in a helicopter, 2-seat helicopter, very challenging. So with that said, hey, look, I not a lot of people admit it, but hey, I failed at being a helicopter pilot. So I had to find a new job in the Army. And what they told me was, hey, look, we got this thing called the Medical Service Corps. And what it is providing medical services to soldiers in a non-medical capacity, right? So I was in charge of running everything from the logistics, all the supplies, the medical records, the front desk staff, the x-rays, the pharmacy. All those folks end up working for me, right? So I got into this capacity, and fortunately I was able to succeed at this, right? So I ended up getting my master's in healthcare administration at Baylor University. It's a 2-year program, very, very challenging. The 1-year didactics with 1 year of studying, right? So you got 4 semesters, 2 months, 2 months for a full class load. I think it was 6 classes per semester. We did that for 4 semesters, 2 months in a row, and we could not sleep. I mean, it was bad. And we got through that course. And I remember at the beginning of it, and I was in this class, and everyone was around me, and I was like, wow, I don't think I'm going to be able to make this, because the challenges were there, right? But fortunately, there was enough folks in my class, right, that kind of helped me and kind of walked me through some of this, because again, you got to remember, when I went to my master's program, I was then 36 years old, I believe. 36 years old. So when I went to my master's, most folks, like my oldest son did his master's straight out of college. He did his when he was 22. I was doing mine when I was 36, so I forgot about all those basic math formulas and all that good stuff. So I had to relearn a lot of things, right? So I did that and was able to graduate from the Army, or not from the Army, from Baylor University with my healthcare administration position. So 23 years in the Army, I became a senior leader in the Medical Service Corps. So I was equivalent of a chief operating officer. So it's the gentleman in charge of of hospitals, and I would do all the administrative requirements. I'd have staffs, about 200 plus folks working for me. And, here's this guy who graduated with a 2.02 GPA from high school, and I'm leading all these people, 200 plus people in these complex hospital operations. So I did that for several years. I ran what they call TRICARE North, which is a healthcare insurance for 23 states. And I was the director for business operation as a major, replacing a full bird colonel. So if you don't know, that's 2 ranks above what I was, just because I was able to perform, right? And I did that for several years. I ended up retiring out of the office of the Army Surgeon General. A lot of fun. So bottom line, I'm now the executive director for Mantech International. I've got my own small business where I buy masks and gloves in this current pandemic, supporting commercial entities out there. So a lot of good fun. Next slide. This is where I really want to get to, because I don't want to bore you guys. All right. So this is the crux of what I think everyone should take away, right? Because I think the good judge said the same thing, and this is a quote from Warren Buffett. If you don't know Warren Buffett's a very, renowned gentleman in the financial industry. So he understands stocks, understands business, all that good stuff. But what he says, surround yourself with people that push you to do and be better. No drama, no negativity. Just higher goals and higher motivation. Good times and positive energy. No jealousy or hate. Simply bringing out the absolute best in each other. And that is exactly it. And let me tell you, so when I joined the Army back in 1989, there's a gentleman up here in the left-hand corner sitting on that bunk. That was when we were in Desert Storm. And that was a war back in 1990, 1991. We lived out in the middle of the desert. You see that? My cot was right next to him. You see his feet in the sand. It was just a tough environment. This gentleman here was a very good friend of mine, still to today. He took, I was 19 years old going to my first war. I mean, think about that. 19 years old, and you got to come to terms with, hey, look, you may not come home. There are some things you may see, and that we did see, and it was very challenging. I was with an armor unit called 464 Armor. We saw a lot of combat. But this gentleman out of Brownsville, Texas, who I'd only known for probably 4 months before that, was my crutch, if you will. He took care of me. He was my sergeant. I was a private then. And it was him who really kept me strong, kept me positive, taught me, hey, look, hey, this what we're living right now is pretty tough. But he was the guy who helped me truly to this day, made me strong. When I came out of high school, this troubled kid, he really helped me develop into a better guy. And that's, part of that message there. My family is in the left-hand corner. My older brother to the far left of the screen his name's Rick, and Rick is a head football coach at a Catholic high school in Los Angeles, very renowned high school called St. Paul, and he's been there. He went there. He's now the head coach there. Very motivational. He's taken care of a lot of folks. Great leader in the community. On the far right is my little brother, and his name is Joey. And Joey is currently the principal at a middle school. And so he's got, kids from kindergarten through 8th grade. And just a phenomenal leader and does great things. And then you see myself there. That's me when I was a little younger. But then the gentleman right in the middle there that my arms are on, that's my stepdad, Joe. My stepdad, Joe, was a mailman. And he was on the same route for 20 years. And I remember he'd take us out there and we'd cut everyone's yards and paint everybody's house on his route. And but his hard work and his dedication in his class, and he taught us how to be good to people, really inspired us all, right? And I mean, he's got 3 sons. All of us, he was a mailman, Vietnam veteran. He came here illegally in 1957, 58, somewhere around there. And look, he's got 3 college-educated young men, right, who all support each other and kind of went forward. Both my brothers went to Louisiana State University, and again, I don't know if you guys follow football, but they're a horrible team. So with that said, and then, in the upper right-hand corner, and I'll just kind of draw your attention real quick, as you see me on the far left, but Juan Cosme, the gentleman on the right, I met him first in 1995. This picture was taken last week. Juan, when I first met him, he was an Army captain, and I was still a sergeant. And he wanted to beat me up one day because he got upset for some of the things I was doing as a sergeant. And, yelled at me, screamed at me, and I forgot about him. Fast forward 10 years later, we're in a plane in the middle of, we're going from Kuwait to Baghdad. And there's a gentleman sitting across from me and says, "Hey, you don't remember me, do you?" I was like, "No, sir," because he was an Army major at the time. I was then an Army captain. He's like, "You don't remember me?" He says, "Hey, I was going to beat you up back in Panama 20 years ago." And it was funny. We kind of talked about, laughed about it. And now, to this day, here we are 25 years later, his best friend of mine. And I know I got a few seconds here. Greg Gadsden, the gentleman in the middle, he lost both his legs in Iraq. One of the biggest influencers I have in my life today. He teaches me how to be strong every day. Look him up online. Greg Gadsden, Gadson. Great American, great story, and he influences me daily. And then my mom in the bottom right. So my battery is about to die on my computer. I think I just got to the on time. But my mom, my biggest influence, my positive, she was tough on me when I was young. I didn't understand the lessons she was telling me. I didn't appreciate how tough she was on me and trying to get me, straight. But today, that's my mom. A few months ago on her birthday, I gave her flowers. But I'm very thankful for my mom every day because, again, she brings out the very best in me. And remember, surround yourself with positive people who are going to help you achieve higher goals. If you're around a bunch of thugs, then guess what you are? You're a thug. If you're around a bunch of positive people who are doing well in life, then guess what you are? You're a positive person who's doing wonderful things in life. And that's what you got to remember. Surround yourself with people that you want to be like. And thank you very much. I'm really grateful for this opportunity.
Thanks so much, Raúl, for sharing your path to success with us. And next, Marina will tell us hers.
Hi, everyone. All right, so I also have, I have a bunch of slides, actually. I think that's the teacher in me. So if you could move to my first slide, that would be great. All right, so hello, everyone. My name is Marina Lavalle. I am currently in Buenos Aires, Argentina. The path to get to Argentina was definitely very crazy, especially since I moved in the middle of a pandemic. But I hope my story will inspire you guys in your own journeys and that you can maybe learn from my experiences on the different types of careers that are out there, not just within education, but beyond. So next slide, please. All right, so I graduated from high school in 2009, and I went to Virginia Commonwealth University. Like many of you guys, I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life. However, I did find a program at VCU that I was really drawn to. It was a program within the School of World Studies. It was International Studies with a focus in social justice. I had been really connected to the idea of social justice, and I had felt like akin to helping the marginalized communities. And through this degree, I was able to just learn and pursue this passion of, working in social justice. So a big turning point for me was in my junior year at VCU. I had an internship at the United Nations High Commission for Refugees. And this internship was a really big deal. I was super proud to have gotten it. I was so excited about, working with the United Nations, this intergovernmental organization. And it was amazing. I was able to work with refugees. I had one instance where I spoke with a Cuban asylum seeker who was in Miami. But one of the most meaningful things that this internship taught me was the kind of work that I was best suited for. So even though I was working in the field of social justice, helping refugees, I realized that my day-to-day life, I was not feeling satisfied with the work I was doing. I realized that I wanted to do something that was more on the field, that had me collaborating and working in a group setting. And really, I just realized that I wasn't kind of built for an office environment. I needed something that was a little bit more dynamic. So I started to look at other options. How could I continue to pursue social justice, but find a job or a career that took me out of an office and into the field? So next slide, please. All right, so after graduating college, my boyfriend at the time, who's now my husband, he had gotten a job teaching English literature at an international school at the American School of Quito. I followed him there. My first job was also in the realm of social justice. I worked as an interpreter for Timmy Global Health, which basically created medical brigades for disenfranchised communities or marginalized communities in the province of Santo Domingo. So my first job there, I worked as an interpreter for medical doctors. We did this weekend brigade, and I got to do a social justice job that was in the field. So I got to see firsthand, the work I was doing and the impact that it was having. Something that I realized that I really needed to see, like I needed to have that impact and see where my work was going. So that was great. However, it was a volunteership. It wasn't being paid. So I had to find something in Ecuador so that I could stay, right? I needed a job and I also needed the visa. So luckily there was an opening at the school that my boyfriend was teaching at to teach social studies. And with my degree in international studies, it kind of fit, right? It was like an open degree. So social studies is somewhat connected to that idea or to that degree. So I applied for a job there. I had always considered teaching because again, it got me working in front of people in a collaborative setting. Every day is different. You have that dynamic kind of in the trenches sort of work that I found really exciting and engaging and interesting. And I also got to continue with my desire to incorporate social justice. So one of the things that I had to really kind of come to terms with, though, is that I was no longer working with marginalized communities. Actually, it was the opposite. I was working with the most privileged students within these countries. And one of the things that I kind of was able to tell myself or remind myself is that through working with some of the most privileged students, I could still drive and show the importance of social justice by creating and inspiring some of the students that would be the future leaders of these places. So opening their eyes to the injustices that are happening within their own countries, teaching compassion, and just teaching kindness. So next slide, please. All right, so after 3 years teaching in Ecuador, my boyfriend and I decided that we wanted to take a year off. Now, this was a gamble because we were only 3 years into our careers. But we decided that, you know, for our own personal reasons, we wanted to do a road trip across the United States. So we had been able to save money from our international job. We bought this old RV and lived in it for 9 months, sleeping in Walmart parking lots, driving all across country, and really getting to explore the United States from a tourist perspective, which sometimes we don't really get to do. And one of the things about this experience that I realized is that, you know, although it was a risk to take a year off, one of the things that was actually kind of really a resume like booster, so many employers after this experience wanted to know more about us. This was like an icebreaker for interviews. They were, you know, so interested and engaged about this personal experience, this risk that we had taken, and, you know, how it, you know, and like what we learned from it. So kind of one of the big takeaways is, you know, take risks and, you know, don't say no to opportunities out of fear, but always kind of take opportunities and, you know, make decisions based off of hope. All right, so next slide, please. Okay, oh, right there. All right, so after our year in our road trip, we got hired at an international school in New York City. This is called Lamont Manhattan Preparatory School. And one of the amazing things about international teaching is that, you know, you initially sign on to teach at schools for 2-year contracts, and you can, you know, renew those contracts up to a certain extent. So in the US, we could have renewed indefinitely. In Ecuador, there was about a 6-year limit. In Argentina, where I'm at now, there's a 5-year limit. So what you do is, like, since you know that these times are limited, you really take advantage of every place that you live in. And you also get to experience life in so many different ways and get to see and live in so many different unique places. So if you think back to my Ecuador slides, you see this campus that I lived on or that I worked in was an outdoor campus with views of volcanoes, hummingbirds flying from trees, and then take that and go straight to New York. I was working in a high rise on the 22nd floor of a high rise in downtown Manhattan. And so you get to really just kind of jump into these different experiences, something that obviously for me, who wants something that's not stationary, is like perfect for my personality. So New York was an awesome experience. It was, again, a risk. I was hired to teach English as a foreign language, something that I did not really have any formal training to do. But again, I said yes. I didn't doubt myself. And, you know, you learn as you go. A lot of times you have to just say yes, and you kind of have like this baptism by fire, trial by fire. You get into it, you dive in head first, and you see that you're going to come out a stronger and, you know, successful person. You just have to persevere and not be afraid. So next slide, please. So after 3 years in New York, we decided again it was time to take a risk. We're really nomadic. Well, I guess we can't sit still. And, you know, one of the scary things about leaving New York is, again, we were leaving job security. We were leaving a place that we had grown to love, leaving students and a great faculty. And one of the things is that you have to tell the school that you're leaving before you have a new job, right? You need letters of rec, you need your references, all that sort of stuff. And so it's always kind of a real big gamble, because what if you don't find another job? However, we decided that we really wanted to apply to Asociación Escuelas Lincoln in Buenos Aires, one of our dream schools. So we applied, we booked tickets to an international job fair specifically to go to the school. We put all of our eggs in this one basket, and we got lucky and we were able to go. And this was back in near Thanksgiving, so last year, 2019, and before COVID hit. So since COVID, we finally got down to Argentina. We've been teaching online since August, but we arrived in November. That is my classroom that I saw through a window. I have still yet to actually teach in person. Here is a view from the school. So again, you see this other experience. You go from the mountains to right in the heart of Manhattan to the Rio de la Plata. So that's really one of the things that international teaching gives you, is the opportunity to, you know, have stability within your job. Like, yes, I'm still a teacher, but I get to do it in all over the world and work with colleagues from all over the world and work with students from all over the world. So anyways, that is my story. I hope that this has maybe inspired an alternative pathway for you guys. Maybe you haven't heard of international teaching as a possible career. And, you know, if you guys have any questions, want to know a little bit more about how you can get into this career, you know, please let me know, and we can email back and forth. So thank you guys.
Thanks, Marina, for sharing your passion and preparing our students to be global citizens. And now, Sammi, you are up. Sammi, you are muted.
There we go. Hello, everybody. I'm Sammi. What a terrible mistake to make as a broadcaster. Is you must have the mic on. And Jorge's laughing because he understands he's a broadcaster, and we've all made that mistake, right, Jorge? It's like, turn the mic on. Well, what I was saying is that I am grateful to be here. Thank you for the invitation, and thank you to all the panelists. You all have all led such amazing lives, and I hope to inspire and share mine with our students today. I wish I could see their faces. Is there a reason we're not seeing their faces?
They're in high school.
Oh, okay. All right, got you. All right, so, well, I hope you all are awake, and I want to make this interactive so you won't fall asleep, because I remember in high school, I had attention deficit disorder, self-diagnosed, by the way. So if you didn't keep me engaged, I was out. My mind was wandering. So students, I hope you have a pen and paper, because I want you to write this down. Okay, you ready? Write this down, and panelists, you can play along if you want to as well. So write this down. No one is me, and that is my power. No one is me, and that is my power. All right, the second thing I want you to write down is, if there was anything that you could do in the world for a profession, what would that be? If there was no obstacles, if there was no reason that you couldn't, what would that be? What would that be, right? And if you have a couple of things, you don't have to have just one. Write a couple of things, write one. You know, no matter how far-fetched you might think it is from your reach, then go ahead and write it down. And you might be hearing some noise in the background while I'm talking, because I'm here at the radio station at Globe Life Park. We're at a big stadium. This is where our network is, my network is. And right now they're changing shifts. We have 3 studios, and so different hosts are coming in and out to do their shows, but then it'll quiet down as they go into the studios. So with that said, I want the students to write that down. If there was anything that I could do for a living, what would that be? Some of you might not know yet, but just have fun with me and put your biggest desire and your wish. And then I want you to remember to keep that in front of you. Keep that in front of you at all times. And know that no one is you, and that is your power, and that you can be anything that you want, despite any obstacles that come into your life. As you've heard from our different panelists, everybody took a different journey. And my journey started out as a young girl who used to get in trouble all the time at school because I love to talk. I was just always talking. And when you got that report card that you sent home to your parents, at the back, there was an S for satisfactory, a U for unsatisfactory. Do you all remember that? Who can remember that? The S, the U, and there was one more, I think, N, needs improvement. It was S, N, and U. So I had S's in everything except for the one U I would get every 6 weeks, year after year after year. And that was that I would talk too much in class. I was talking too much in class. So so as I was, growing up, I had an amazing family, a very competitive family. I thought my sister is actually on here, Marcia. I wish she could turn her picture on so she can either shake her head in agreement, or maybe she'll say, I didn't see it that way. But my oldest sister, Marcia, was the oldest, and she was what we call the brain of the family. She was so smart, and she was in speech, and she was in oratory, and she was just so eloquent with how she spoke, and I got to watch her and see this. And then I had a brother, Tony. Tony was the athlete. He was an amazing golfer, but he was also so smart in math. And then here I come along, and I felt like, well, I want to be like my big sister, and I want to be like my brother. So I did both. I was an athlete and I was a speaker, and I wanted to be as good as them in both of those areas. And I tried to work really, really hard, but I always felt like things didn't come as easy to me and as natural to me as it did for them. Maybe I'm wrong, but I just felt like they just had such an ease. My sister with words and speaking, and my brother in his sport. And I had to work a little bit harder than everybody else. But I think that's kind of what made me. Like I said, no one is you, and that is your power. And no one was me, and that was my power. I wasn't my sister. I wasn't my brother. I was me. And you know where I was great? Nobody could outwork me. I was relentless. I was like a pit bull. My sister's going, yes. I took no for no. I didn't take no for an answer. I was fearless. And I always said, why not me? So even though things came harder to me, whatever it was that I wanted to achieve or to become, I was going to do it no matter how, no matter what, no matter where. Ethically, of course. And for the judge, I did it legally. I did it legally, Judge. So I was going to do it in the right way, but I was going to find a way. I was going to figure it out. I was going to look on top, below, underneath, around. I was relentless. And at first I thought that was a negative thing when people would say, you're relentless. I was like, wow, is that a bad thing? But I've come to realize it's a great thing, because it's perseverance. It's another word for perseverance. It's another word for finding a way. It's another way for making no excuses. It's another way for figuring it out. It's another word for being resourceful. So those were the qualities that I had that at sometimes I perceived were not good qualities or negative, but for me, it worked and it got me to where I was. And where is that? Sitting here at Globe Life Park in a stadium with a company that I founded 11 years ago that has 13 employees now, over 7.2 million listeners a month, hundreds of people that have come through this business in 11 years that I've got to teach and support and help them reach their goals through the power of the mic. Because when you can get behind a microphone and reach millions of people, you have a responsibility to the audience. You have a responsibility to either be a force for positivity or a force for negativity. And here at Fishbowl and throughout my career, I made a decision to be a force for positivity, to be a force for using that power of the mic, to not just use it to entertain and to inform and to interact, but to serve the community, to serve the world. We do nonprofit things for organizations locally, nationally, and internationally, and we're always giving back. And I think I learned that giving back attitude from my parents, who were always very community oriented and service oriented. They were the example. So with that said, you can find examples within your own home. I've already expressed how my brother and sister were examples to me. My parents were examples to me. But I mentor a lot of kids who don't have those examples at home. And I tell them, don't make that an excuse, because you can find mentors, you can find teachers, you can find community leaders, you can find other people in your life that you can look up to, that can be your mentors, that can be your heroes, that you can aspire to be. My point is, don't make excuses. a lot of people say I'm tough, and I am tough, and I'm gonna be tough on you high school students because I believe in you, and no one is you, and that is your power. And one day you are going to be working for your families, for yourself, for the community, for the country. And I believe that you're gonna work for good. And I believe that you can be anything you wrote on that paper, no matter how far-fetched it may seem. I never thought I would be an owner of a company. I was a high school graduate. I was someone who loved to talk. Now I get paid to talk. For over 30 years, I've gotten paid to talk. So believe me, I went back to those teachers that gave me a U, and I go, well, I get paid to talk now. Y'all were trying to keep me from my greatness. Y'all were trying to stifle my true creativeness. Y'all were trying to keep me down. But no one keeps down a good Latina woman. Nobody, right? That's right. So with that said, I kept doing what was natural to me, what felt came from God, really, because I believe, and I'm going to get spiritual on you because I can't not, because that's who I am. I believe we're all created for a purpose. We're all created for something, right? And when you feel that thing that comes natural to you, that you love to do, that you would do for free if you want, if you could, you do it anyway. I heard something the other day. A passion is not like a hat. It's like your head. You can't not do it. Okay? That's how you know it's a passion. Because you don't just take it off whenever it's not working for you, or you just don't use it. It's your head. You can't take your head off. It goes with you everywhere. It's a part of who you are. I can't not talk. I suck at painting. I can't sing worth a damn. And you know what? I express in this way through the spoken word. I love to motivate. I love to inspire. I love to communicate. I love to mobilize people to do things for the community, for the world, through a large audience, and get them excited and get them revved up and get them motivated and inspire them. And so with that said, that's what I wrote down on my paper years ago. I said, okay, I get in trouble for talking. Well, I'm going to make this my passion. I'm going to make this my purpose, whether it's standing in front of a classroom teaching, whether it's behind the mic doing a radio show, whether it's at a speech where I'm a panelist. Right now, right here, I'm in my passion right now. Can you hear it? Like, can you feel it? Like, I come alive. Like, I love this, right? I love to let you know how special you are, how great you are. And if nobody's ever said that to you, shame on them, because you are amazing. You are special, and you can do and be anything you want. Now, inside your head, you're going to start thinking, when I say that, you're going to start coming up with all the excuses. All the excuses are going to go, well, no, it's because this, trust me, I talk to kids all the time. Well, Miss Sammi, it's because this. No, am I this? Stop it. Stop it. It's all a lie. It's all a lie. All you have to do is this. I'm going to give you 5 things. Write them down. Ready? Here we go. Start. Just start. Whatever your passion is, start preparing for it. All right. So for instance, example, I wanted to be get paid to speak. Guess what? I started in my school. I was on the speech team. I was on the speech classes. I had great teachers, Miss Shaw, Miss Harlan. They helped me hone that skill. I prepared. So when the job came, I was able to walk into it, and I already had the skills. I was able to get hired. So start preparing in school. Look for the different extracurricular activities in school that align with the things that you want. If you put down, I want to be an NBA basketball player, start. Are you playing on the basketball team? Are you, get in there, start doing the thing you love. Just start doing it, because like I said, it's part of who you are. You got to do it. When you're not doing it, you don't feel right. Second, find people who are going to support you. Again, find your mentors. I've heard more than one panelist say this, that mentors are very important. And all of us here have said and raised our hands to say, we're here for you. Send us an email. We will help you. We will support you. We will answer your questions, or we'll guide you to someone that can help you in what you're wanting to do and be, right? We will, because we all know a lot of people here. And so after today, you can't say, well, I don't have a mentor. You got a bunch of them right here. We're right here, and we are happy to serve you. The other one, don't be afraid to ask for help. We all need help. Look, no man is an island. I didn't get here by myself. I have a picture over here of my mentor. Let me reach it. I don't know if y'all can see that. That's my mentor. That's my radio mentor at 20 years old. He mentored me in this industry that I'm at, and I always have him, and I stay in touch with him to this day. One of the best radio program directors in the country, and he is my mentor, and I keep him right there next to me. I see him every day because I remember the things he told me. I remember the things he taught me, all right? So find mentors. Find people that can help you along the way. 4, don't be the smartest person in the room. Newsflash, newsflash. No one knows everything. Not any of these panelists knows everything. I don't know everything, and you don't know everything. So be open-minded to listen, to take advice. And if you're the smartest person among your friends, find new friends, because you need to get smarter. You need to keep rising. And Jorge's laughing because you know I'm right. And you know, like you got to surround yourself with some people smarter than you. So in high school, I know that might be the nerds, and you might be saying, like, I don't want to hang around the nerds. Be a nerd. Nerds are powerful. Nerds rock. Okay, because I promise you, being popular and all that good stuff, that ain't going to get you nowhere. That's not going to help you. I happen to have been popular too, but hey, you know, what can I say, right? But I'm just saying, because I was an athlete too, so I was good at that. But my point is, guys, I'm trying to make you laugh. My point is, find people that you're going to learn from, that are going to challenge you, right? Like, if you're just always around the same people, you're not expanding your brain. You're not expanding. And be like Marina. I love her. Like, she's an explorer. She takes risks. She goes and sees places. She's not afraid. She runs towards fear. She takes risks. She's a soul sister to me. I love that. I love that. And that's what you got to be, guys. Run towards fear. If something scares you, run towards it. All right, run toward, and I mean, if it's a gun, don't run towards it, but I'm just saying, you know what I'm talking about, right? You know what I'm talking about. All right, so don't be the smartest person in the room. And lastly, this is critical. Whatever profession, whatever dream you have, whatever choice you pick on that paper, figure out a way to do it and serve others while you're doing it. Because it isn't until you're serving others while you're doing it that true legacy and true success comes. So I did 30-something years of radio, and I was like, oh, I did my dream. I was in major market, top stations, you know, the first Hispanic, you know, on an English radio station, and yeah, all these things. And I was like, oh, that's awesome, that's awesome. But it wasn't until I opened my business and started helping others reach their dreams that I could now say I was really leaving a legacy, that I was really doing something bigger than for myself. And it has been my outside of my children and my grandchildren and my husband, it has been my biggest achievement to be able to help others reach their dreams. Okay. And so I believe God prepared me all along to be able to finally get to do that. And so if you can't find a way to serve others with what it is you're doing, you're not going to reach your highest level or your highest potential. So ask yourself, who am I serving with what I'm doing in my profession? If you can't answer that, you're not there yet. You need to keep working. You need to keep striving. All right. So I'm in radio. I know all about how much time we have. That's why I'm kind of talking fast. I get excited. This is my passion. But once again, high school students that I'm talking, Manuel, Micalina, Fahim, Nahomi, Senora Cabrera, I'm assuming you're the teacher, no, Senor Cabrera, Jasmine, Sebastian, Patricia, Albert, J.N. Schultz, no one is you, and that is your power.
So sometimes what'll happen is like...
Thank you so much, Sammi, for leading the way. Si se puede. Jane, you are up next. Or maybe not, she might be muted also, but.
Oh, there we go.
Please, okay, yes.
Okay, sorry, thank you. Sammi, that was, all of the talks have just been wonderful. I am just so enthusiastic by everyone's, but all with a different story, all with a different suggestions. Thank you so much. And Diego, I know you have a wonderful story. Let's hear yours.
Sure, thank you. I'm going to copy Raúl and set the timer so I don't go over the time because I'm not as professional as Sammi with the time. So I'm going to take a little different approach as I go through my presentation. If you could start the slides, please, Manuel. I'm going to start talking. I'm going to talk through the few slides very quickly, and then I'm going to stop at the last slide so that I can really elaborate how I ended up in the place that I have. So the first slide that you're seeing is the organizational chart for the city of Fairfax in Virginia. And what I want you to look at here is, where does the school board fall into place? The school board falls under the city of Fairfax citizens. So the school board answers to the citizens of Fairfax. And of course, as we go through this presentation, I want you to think of all the people that I work with, all the organizations that I may work with, and think about the careers that are available in each one of these organizations or the people that I work with. And working for the school board, I still need to be able to work with the mayor, the city council. I work with the police department. We work with Parks and Rec. We have to work with the fire department. So we work with all these different associations, and just think about all of the different groups in the city, or any municipal government. There are places where you could find careers, where you might find interests that you like. The next slide, please. So, yeah, you skipped the one slide. If you could go back. So basically what happens is that I present to the school board. I make requisitions to the school board about work that we're doing as the staff for the school board, as the assistant superintendent for the school board. And then I also present reviews of how things are going with the school board. Here in front of you is a chart that I help to put together every year so that we request funds for capital improvement plans in the schools. So here you see everything from painting to new HVAC. So basically we asked for about $1.2 million last year. For the following year, which is what I'm working on now, 2022, we're asking for $2.5 million. So next slide, please. So some of this work goes on in the city hall, in the municipal, they call the diocese. Jorge, you're probably familiar with the diocese, and not in a way that it's judges, but it's basically during the day it is used as the judges' quarters. Next slide, please. So some of the projects that I worked with, for instance, was the heating, ventilating, and air conditioning project last summer. We replaced equipment that it has reached the end of the useful life. We call it the EOUL. And that's on the top left side. On the top right-hand side, you see that we are taking equipment off of a truck, brand new equipment, and think about what we had to do for this. There's a lot of planning, organizing, monitoring, evaluating, and of course, now we have the funds to do the work. So what had to be in place in order to get this job done? We have to have the crane, the operators, the crane operator, the HVAC contractor, the heating, ventilating, air conditioning contractor. We have to have roofers ready to seal the holes that we put on the roofs to actually install this equipment. We have safety inspectors, we have welders. All have to be in place for the day when we actually get to come in and start installing this equipment. On the bottom right-hand corner, you see the crane lifting the new equipment into place. And here we've communicated with the city as far as the fire department knows that we're going to have a crane on the streets. The zoning people know that we're going to have a crane on the streets. The safety inspectors are going to be in the area. We also have to communicate with the principals so that they maintain teachers, staff, and students on alert and keep them in safe areas away from where we're working, because this is happening in the summertime, but we are having summer school at the same time this work is going on. And then on the left-hand side, you see the completion of the project, or the completion of the management cycle on one of the projects that I'm talking about. So we've done installation, we've done the startup. Now we do a follow-up after the startup, and we do what is called a punch-out list, where we have to make sure everything is exactly like we had asked to be when the equipment was installed. And finally, the city inspects the equipment. The following slide, please. So here's one of the presentations that I have to do to the school board, tell them everything that I have done in the summertime. And you see the 3 months on the calendar, and on the right-hand side, you see the HVAC equipment diagrams of some of the work that was completed. The next slide, please. So some of the other work that we do in the summertime, in this case, was at the elementary school. We worked on redoing parking lots and curbs. Next slide, please. And this year, we ended up having to cancel some jobs because of COVID. So here are air conditioners that we had that were ready to be installed. We had to postpone them. Now I'm on the process of rescheduling that work with everybody I mentioned before, because we're going to have to do the installations as soon as we are able to schedule everybody together, hopefully in the spring. Next slide, please. Some of the other work at the middle school, we've gone from, in the library, we have renovated it to go from a library as we traditionally know it, where it's just books, to a library now where students have their own computers every single day. So we had to transform the library, and you see it up top, what a library used to look like. And now you see at the bottom what it looks like now, and you see the teachers getting ready to teach at Lanier Middle School. Next slide, please. At the high school, one of the huge projects we had this past summer was installing a new floor for 128,000 square feet. There are a total of 8 courts, basketball courts inside this gym. So it's a huge disruption to the school, the city, and a lot of coordination in the jobs. But imagine all of the things that have to come together to do a job like this. Closing off parking lots, safety inspectors. You know, we had to have people that were ready to paint afterwards, and so forth. Next slide, please. Again, Fairfax High School, we did similar things. Tear out the parking lot, put new parking lots in, and here we upgraded the sidewalks so that they could be ADA compliant. That's for the American Disabilities Act, so that people can utilize the ramps to get onto sidewalks and get into the school. Next slide, please. So how did I get here? Well, I didn't just wake up in high school and say, I'm gonna be the assistant superintendent one day. And actually, when I was in high school, I went to Woodson Vocational High School right up the street from Fairfax City, and I took courses in heating and air conditioning. After high school, I went to work right as soon as I graduated, to work for Marriott, and I did an apprenticeship with Marriott. In this apprenticeship, I had the opportunity to work with everything that you can imagine that Marriott hotels, and back then at the day, we had cafeterias and restaurants around Baltimore, Washington, and Richmond area. I worked from ovens to ice machines, ice cream machines. I worked on huge air conditioners that you could actually walk in to the air conditioner to work on the fans that were, you know, probably 15, 20 feet tall. And after I was working for Marriott, I went to work for contractors, and one of the contractors tapped me on the shoulder and said, you know, I want you to go to oil school. So I learned to work on petroleum furnaces. I went to gas school to work on gas furnaces. I learned to work on heat pumps. And they sent me to school for a week at a time in order to be able to do this. And when they tapped me on the shoulder and they also said, hey, we want to open up a shop in Woodbridge, Virginia, I took a step back and I said, well, I don't know anything about running a shop. So I went back to school. I went to Northern Virginia Community College, studied for 2 years there, and transferred to James Madison University. After I came out of James Madison University with a bachelor's in business administration, I went back to the HVAC industry, and somebody again tapped me on the shoulder and said, hey, I see you doing presentations for sales. I see you helping out with presentations for training others. Have you ever thought of being a teacher? And I had the opportunity to go to T.C. Williams and become a teacher, teaching heating, ventilating, and air conditioning. After a couple years at T.C. Williams, I transferred to Edison High School in Fairfax County Public Schools, where I continued teaching. Again, I was tapped on the shoulder and said, hey, we need a department chair for the vocational department. So I took on the job, and I really liked it, being the department head. And I asked the principal for a recommendation to go to get my master's at George Mason University. And I still remember the principal saying to me, you got a taste of administration and you like it, didn't you? I said, yes, I did. And that's what I did. I went back to college and got my master's in educational leadership. And from there, believe me, it took me very many tries to get into administration. I probably interviewed at least a dozen times for assistant principal. And the moral here is that if you want to do something, you have to keep on trying to do it. After being getting into becoming an assistant principal, again, I was tapped, and they said to me, and we want you to put you in a program to become a principal. And I went into Lead Fairfax to go into a training program to become a principal. And finally, I ended up at Fairfax High School, where I became the administrator of the Fairfax Academy for Communications and the Arts. How did I get that job? Well, it was my experience in teaching in the academy at Edison. It was my experience of being a department chair at Edison, and my accumulated experience of being in different facets throughout my career. Finally, when I retired from Fairfax County, again, I was tapped on the shoulder by the person that got me into Lead Fairfax years ago, probably 19 years ago, said, hey, we need an assistant superintendent at the City of Fairfax Schools. And I tried out for it, and here I am. The biggest thing I have to say to you is that, we've landed in a generous country with generous people that are willing to help you. At each of the steps of my career, every time I was tapped on the shoulder to do a different job, and I accepted, I continued my education in order to learn that job. And I did my best at that job, and I was loyal to that job that I was doing until, the next opportunity opened up. At one point, my family said, why do you want to go into air conditioning? That, my family came from, my brother was a civil engineer. My mom was a teacher. I'm sorry, my grandmother was a teacher. So I came from a family that had professionals in it. But that's what I wanted to do. My passion was mechanical type of engineering work, and that's what I wanted to do. But it comes around in life. That experience has gotten me to the point where I'm an assistant superintendent in charge of all these facilities in the school, where my air conditioning background and being out in construction and things like that have all come around to help me at the point that I am today. Again, like everybody else said, I will be staying around the chat if you have questions, or if you want to contact me, I'm available. Just go to City of Fairfax Schools and you can click on contact us, and I will get your email. Thank you. Thank you for listening tonight.
thank you to the panelists. You all have inspired all of us, not just the students. I noticed that all of you had some common threads, even though you are on very different professions. All of you were very tenacious, and all of you ran into fear, as Sammy G, my sister, said. And so one of the first questions I want to ask is actually to Sammy G, which is, what courses do you recommend to take in high school to accomplish a career such as yours? And before I let her answer that question, I just want to say that what we saw tonight, even though she didn't give her whole story, what we really saw tonight was another thing that she's passionate about, and that's motivating kids. And you know, she also has an interesting story, but I think tonight what overcame her was her passion to motivate our young listeners, and I think us as well.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, something happened to my computer here really quick, so bear with me. If you want to ask another question to someone else in the meantime, you can.
Okay, so then I'll just stick with the ladies and I'll go with Miss Lavalle. The other question that somebody put was, where can we find jobs to work abroad?
That's a great question. So there's a couple of organizations, especially if you're looking for teaching overseas, that post job openings. So there's kind of the traditional route to get into this. So you go and get a bachelor's or a master's in education. And once you have that teaching credential in the United States, you see that there's positions for teachers all over the world. And these are international schools that teach the International Baccalaureate program, which actually Fairfax County has a couple of schools that offer that. So there's Search Associates. It's a organization that, you know, you would put your resume in, and they have, you know, schools post jobs and you can apply via that. There's International School Services, known as ISS, which is another one that we use. There's also international job fairs. So the American Association of South American Schools, ASA, has a job fair in person in Atlanta. There's job fairs in Boston, San Francisco. So there's a lot of different, you know, organizations that look into it. So if you really are interested in that, I can definitely point you in the right direction. And then also, you know, as you get your first job, you start to meet colleagues, and then when it's time to get that second job, you start to get references, and your network becomes larger and bigger, and you can start to find openings and positions, you know, from word of mouth too. So, yeah.
Thank you. Sammy, are you ready to answer the question?
I think Jorge had a question. He had his hand up.
Oh.
No, just a comment. My two oldest boys also taught abroad. My son Francisco was in Spain for 5 years teaching English. My oldest boy just came home after 9 years in Korea, received a master's teaching English as a second language at TESOL. He was teaching at the university there in Korea, so he just came home. So the information is out there if that's what you really want to do. It's not difficult to find out. Just be very wary of brokers, people who claim that they will get you a job because they want a fee up front, and sometimes they will leave you stranded in a country. So just do your homework and just research it, and everything should be just easy to get.
Mm-hmm. And then one thing to add on, to be a member of like International Search Associates or oh my gosh, ASA or any of those organizations, there is a fee that you do have to pay. So that there's sometimes that you get these kind of things that can be quite sketchy. So one thing you always want to look at when you do apply for schools is the school accredited? What is the curriculum that's taught? Is it a for-profit or not-for-profit institution? Because there are a lot of kind of shady opportunities out there too. So you want to make sure, you know, like, what is their diploma that they're offering here, and is it a real school? Which is good to know. So yeah, you have to do your homework a little bit too.
Thank you. I'm sure you're probably going to get some emails from some students that want to go that way. Sammy?
I want to go that way.
Oh.
So the question was, what classes should you be taking to have a job in broadcasting? So in high school, like I mentioned when I was speaking, I was involved in the speech and drama classes that were available there. And in my case, in junior high, we had speech and drama. And we had this amazing teacher, Mrs. Shaw, who was just fired up and passionate about it. And so she really helped hone those skills from an early age. And then I went to high school and we had another amazing teacher. I think she was teacher of the year in the state of Texas, and she was just amazing. May she rest in peace, Mrs. Harlan. And so, Rita Harlan. So in your high schools, you probably have speech and drama classes. I would take those. Those are going to help you. And then as you're choosing your major, I have my bachelor's from the University of Texas at El Paso. I have it in communications. And I also still stayed in theater at UTEP as well, belonged to a group called Elenco. So I think when you get into your speech and drama classes, that's going to help hone your skills to prepare you when you get that job opportunity. Now, I will say this, and I'm very honest because I do talk to a lot of kids that want to get into the media and into broadcasting. And I tell them this, even though I got my degree in broadcasting and communications, I would have probably done it differently because almost everyone in my industry that I worked with didn't have degrees. It was a skill set that they had. It was a talent that they had, a talent of knowing how to entertain and inform and communicate. So I think with today's day and age, if I could do it all over again, I would get a degree in business or marketing and knowing how to brand yourself. With social media right now is huge. No radio station, no media person is not going to know how to do SEO and how to build a community on social media as well. It's critical nowadays. So you guys that are in school are already good at that. And so start building your communities. And if you want to start, it's a lot like sports. If you want to play basketball, you can read about it, you can watch a game, but until you're on the court playing, you're not doing it. Same with broadcasting. You can read about it, you can take courses, but until you're behind the mic doing show after show, you're not doing that. And I offer that at Fishbowl. Doesn't matter what age you are. If you want to start getting behind the mic, we can help you with that as well. I love to help students do that so they can start honing their skill behind the mic.
And another thing is, not everybody is built for being on air. Not everyone is built with that personality, be didactic and on the spot and being able to, go from one subject to the other. There's the behind the scenes, how to put together a program, how to pre-program, how to run the equipment. Check your community colleges. All your community colleges should have a communications radio type programming. In California, you get certification, and you can take that certification and work for a local broadcasting company, whether it be a nonprofit type situation like PBS, because we have PBS stations here.
Okay, this is my question.
Okay, dale gas.
Okay.
Oh my God.
There's a female vice president. This is my question.
And he went to school with that female vice president. No. Okay. Well, thank you. See, you can tell.
What just happened? What just happened?
The two radio personalities, you can tell.
But no, he's in all playing aside, he's right. And one thing I highly suggest too is internships. You can go to your radio station and you can ask, can I do an internship? Throughout my career, I had a lot of interns that I helped break into the business that are now running stations across the country. So, if it's something you want to do, ask for an internship so you can really look around, be in the day-to-day, see if it's truly what you want to do, learn and be a sponge. And this industry is a lot of, you can get in the door, right, with who you know, but of course your skill set and what you know is going to keep you in the door. But internships are great. And like he said, community college stations, Right now you can do your own with technology, with podcasting. You can do your own shows. There's a lot of streaming services that exist out there, but you want to come with the best. But there's a lot out there. So just start doing it. Just start researching. You guys, you young kids, you all have Google. There's no damn excuse. You can find out information about anything and start learning and preparing.
Okay, so this question now does go to Jorge, okay? So this is a question that came in for you, Mr. Hernandez, which is, how did you handle a challenging course in college? And you did talk about law school being brutal. So how did you handle that?
You know, I was an English major because in high school, I used to write poetry and short stories, and I imagined myself being a great writer. And when I went to UC Riverside and became an English major, all my papers bled. You know, I didn't know how to write. I really didn't have the writing skills, and I questioned myself. And I was on the verge of dropping out because I said, all these things that everyone ever said about me is true. I'm not smart enough to make it in college. So I went to go visit the writing lab at UC Riverside, and there was a hippie there by the name of Greg Stokes. I used to call him Gray Stoke, Tarzan. And the guy never wore any shoes, man. I mean, he was just a straight up hippie. And he goes, Jorge, do you think these white boys are smarter than you? I said, hell yeah. He goes, no, they're not. They know how to use the library. So he walked me over to the library and he showed me, he goes, what are you reading right now in your English? Boom, plops it out. Character development, plot development, chapter by chapter, pulled another resource and just pulled all these different resources out. And what I found out is that nobody was smarter than me, but they had more knowledge than I had. And the beauty of today is that with the internet, you can get anything you want. You can get that. When we were going to school, though, it was just like hit and miss. You know, sometimes we hit on a good idea and we were able to make it, and a lot of times we failed, and we weren't smart enough to know that we couldn't do it. Right? It was one of those where ignorance is bliss. We didn't know we couldn't do it, and we just kept trying. If we hit a wall one way, you know, we just went around and went another direction. And that was my generation. We just kept going and kept going and kept going. And now you have no excuse. You want to know how to go teach abroad? You Google it. You want to know how to start a podcast? You Google it. You want to know how to do anything? You Google it. There is no limitation as to what it is you can do. So I handled a course by asking for help. I asked for help because I was on the verge of dropping out. And this gentleman showed me that these folks weren't smarter than me. They just had better access to knowledge because their mothers and fathers went to college and knew how to use the library. Whereas my mom, 8th grade education, wouldn't even know how to get around a college.
So I know we're a little bit over our time, and I don't know if the panelists can just stay for a few more minutes because I know we have a question. Is Mr. Jurado, are you here? Is that Mr. Jurado there?
Yeah, sure am.
So we have a question. I think you answered it, but it's if you could answer it verbally. What tips do you have for students who would like to join the U.S. Army?
A good question. So there's many tips, and just by happenstance, my son attempted to join the Army last week. And so I kind of went through some things with him. So everything's kind of fresh in my mind. The first thing, foremost, you got to understand what you want to do in life, right? Or what you want to do that's going to be interesting to you before you join the Army. Because in the Army, you can do anything from a paralegal, a medic, a logistician, a truck driver. I mean, you name it, we do it. The Army is totally self-sufficient. So there's nuclear technicians, to military police, to guys who put up satellites, people, you got cooks, you've got mechanics, tank mechanics, you can be a trigger puller, so you can be an infantryman, you can be an armor guy, you can be an artillery, You can be a missile launcher. I mean, there's just so many things you need to do. But in order to get what you want, the most important thing is there's a thing called the ASVAB. And don't ask me what it stands for, but it's a test that you need to take to get into the services. You have got to study because, like I told my son, it is a life-changing decision when you go into the services, right? The biggest piece is that job you're going to get. And if you want to be work with the nuclear folks, you want to work with the intelligence folks, which is, the spies and all that good stuff and top secrets, you've got to score high in this test. So like in any endeavor in your life, you've got to understand what the qualifications are to get into it. And if you have to score, and I'm just using an arbitrary number here, 115 on a test, well then you need to understand what your strengths and weaknesses are on the test and utilize all the resources out there. Just like the gentleman said before me, there's resources all over the place to help you prepare for the things you're going to do in life, whether it's a class, whether it's a profession, whether it's joining the Army. You've got to do the homework. You've got to work hard to prepare yourself. So then when it's time to show up and take that test to do whatever you're going to do, you're prepared and you're ready to go. And I'll just tell you the last point, when you think about the Army is a fantastic place. They give you money for college. They give you an education. They give you housing. I mean, it's just like the things you're going to do, the training. But when you go into it, you got to understand there's always an end state. You're not going to be in the Army forever. Go into it with a job. Do I got a few minutes for a quick story?
Sure.
All right. So when I was, I had no intentions on joining the Army. And one day I'm walking to high school, and this car pulls up next to me, and my high school is on a hill, and the guy pulls up to me and says, "Hey, you want to ride?" And I look in the car, and it was a gentleman in a Marine uniform. So I was like, sure, I'll jump in. Well, it was only a 5-minute drive, but by the time I got to the high school, I was ready to be an infantryman and join the Marines. I was ready to go. I got out of that car and I made a life-changing decision. I'm going to join the Marines. And I got home and I told my dad, I was like, "Hey, Dad, I'm going to join the Marines." And my dad was a helicopter crew chief in the Army during the Vietnam War. And he told me, he says, "No, son," he says, "you're not going to join the infantry. You're not going to join the Marines. You're going to join the Army, and you can get yourself a job that's going to transition you to real life when you get out. And it's going to build your skill sets and all that good stuff." And, I followed his lead. I came in as a legal guy, went into the medical field, and now I will tell you it's paid off in abundance in terms of where I'm at in life. So with that, I make smart decisions. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate that you all stayed a little bit extra. I think that we would all love to spend another hour with all of you, and I can already see that there's like wonderful banter going on within the panelists. So that's nice. The challenge this year for us as an organization was to do this virtually, but the great benefit was that we got to get these amazing speakers from all over. And I think that as we move forward, we're going to kind of try to do things like that, because there's a wealth of Latinos out there, and they're not just all here in Fairfax County, they're everywhere. And I think our students benefited from this. This is being recorded, so I know that it would probably be shown by some of the clubs at the schools. But with that, I'm going to turn this over to my very good friend, Marina Lavalle, so that she can end this with closing remarks. But before I go, I really want to thank each and every one of you, because you were so inspiring. And like Sammi said, like, we want to be you now. It's like my sister and I were writing. It's like, we're gonna do what I said. Let's get a Winnebago and let's do what Marina did. Let's just take off. And she's like, I'm there. So, Micheline.
Thank you, Marcia. This has been incredibly enlightening. It's been inspirational. I have loved listening to all of your stories. We thank you from the bottom of our hearts for having shared all your experiences with us. We love it. Now you see what I have to contend with my daughter here, getting off in a Winnebago, like you say. I want to live vicariously through her, if I was only younger. But anyway, this has been wonderful. Thank you to the clubs. Thank you, Mary, and everyone else who has, who's very involved with the Latino clubs in Fairfax County Public Schools, high schools. I know that they make a huge difference in the lives of the children. Thank you to our board members, to my good friends for being here, for dedicating so much time to the Hispanic Educators Association. It's an organization that we're very proud of. And we know that these type of events are extremely powerful to young adults. Thank you for all of you who are here, who are high school students. Bravo para ustedes. Muchas gracias. You guys rock it. You are the future of the world. And don't forget that. Everyone said it in a different way. You are the future, and we're counting on you to be fearless. So anyway, I don't, Manuel, am I the closing remark and that's it? Or yeah? So thank you, everyone. Goodbye, and hopefully the conversations keep on going.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.